We call it Free Therapy Thursday, and sometimes we get emails that are just way above our pay grade, and I say this each and every week that we're no different than you guys, man. We don't have any kind of degrees in psychology. What you have here are 4 or 5 people in a studio that can play the part of your best friend with opinions, but sometimes when the really important and serious ones come in, we turn it over to the professionals, which we will do. So Abby here is going to read the email, and then we are going to turn it over to co-host of Honest Women, and that podcast is on the Pioneer Network, which legally, I got to tell you guys, I own that thing.
Hey, Bert Show. I'm dating a widower and feeling like the other woman. He's mid-30s with a teenager. I'm mid-20s with a 6-year-old. His wife passed away 4 years ago. It's been a few months, and we seem to have a good relationship. However, I noticed he is being very secretive when he is with his late wife's family. He spends almost every weekend with her family, and I don't hear from him much when he's with them. So after yet another secret getaway with her family where we hardly talked and he wouldn't tell me anything about their time together, I started to worry if he was really with her family for the sake of his daughter or if he was actually with another woman. So my next opportunity, I looked around his room a little bit. He has all of his clothes on top of his dresser instead of inside. Turns out the dresser is packed full of his late wife's clothes. I would understand if his daughter would one day grow into them, but she's a teenager in adult sizes and wouldn't have to go up 14 pant sizes to even start fitting into her mom's clothes. That seems excessive to hang on to every single article of clothing for long enough for that to happen. When confronted, he said, "Why wouldn't I hang on to it all? You can't just let go of the past." Well, all of her belongings are all over the house. There are pictures of her everywhere you look. There's a bathroom he won't use because all of her bathroom stuff is being preserved in there. And he calls her his wife, not late wife. And it's starting to make me feel like I'm the other woman and that he's going to come home and that she's going to come home any minute. One last thing, he won't go to therapy and won't take his daughter for help to process everything either. We can't spend the night together because his daughter freaks out at the thought of someone sleeping in her dad's room. I now understand why. I wouldn't want someone else sleeping in a room with every single item of my mom's preserved either. But at this point, he's allowing his teenager to dictate our relationship. Shady or not, WWTBSG? Oh, what would the Bert Show do? I'm like, this isn't Jesus. What would the Bert Show do? Do I stay or do I go? Help. Thanks.
Oof, above our pay grade. All right, Jessica Hutchison of Honest Women Podcast joining us this morning. Hey, Jessica.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so what are you thinking here?
Okay, so first I want to start off by saying this is actually my specialty. I like grief at work is what I do all day, every day. So I'm going to start off here by being really direct. And the truth of the matter is, to this listener, you are only dating this man because his wife died. He likely still loved her and would still be married to her if she did not pass away. She's also the mother of his child, and you can only imagine how hard life is for this girl doing it without her mom by her side. Now, with that being said, you can love another one. You can go on to love again after a loss, but they usually don't stop ever loving the person that they lost. Couple of red flags for me, though, here with this gentleman is that he doesn't appear to be open to having a conversation. And not only that, he shuts it down every time she tries to bring it up. So I question if he actually can talk about his late wife at this point. So in the grief world, we call this integrated grief. And to effectively mourn a person, you move from what's called acute grief to integrated grief. He appears to maybe be caught in that acute grief place. And I don't know, when you're caught in that place, you're not actually ready to date. He also sounds like he might feel guilty. And if that's the case, he's never going to be able to fully let in somebody else. So my best advice, honestly, is to err on the side of caution, perhaps have a conversation with him about if he thinks he's ready to start a new relationship with somebody. And the last thing I'm going to say, guys, is just there's no time frame when it comes to grief. This is the biggest misperception that we have in American society, is that just because 4 years has passed, you're over it, you're through it. You never, and let me repeat that, you never fully get over a person that you lost. It doesn't matter if it's been 4 months, 4 years, or 14 years. It just becomes a little less present in everyday life.
So as I'm hearing you talk, are there some that if you're going into a relationship like this should know, even though their significant other isn't around anymore, they will always feel second?
Yes. So one of the things I will say is you kind of are the other woman in a sense, right? So technically this woman is still his wife. They are still married, even though she's deceased. So it's just terminology that we use with late wife, but they didn't get divorced. So when somebody new comes in, one, you have to kind of welcome having a third person in the relationship. And by no means do I mean every single day, but this is the mother of his child. That child is going to reject you more than you can imagine if you try to come in and not allow space for mom. Her pictures should stay up in the house for that child and for him. Maybe they come down eventually. And I've seen that when people start new relationships, but this woman is still part of their life and will always be part of their life.
So what advice would you give her as about her saying, so should I stay or should I go?
I mean, as much as I'm really not like an all or nothing. Well, I kind of am, I guess. But I like I said, I think you err on the side of caution, but you need to have some conversations, not necessarily about this woman, but if he's ready to date and being able to say, hey man, you lost your wife. Like you're trying to raise a teenage girl, which I hope my daughter would never have to be raised without me. Because as a woman, it is so hard to be a teenage girl. So being able to normalize, this is a really hard thing. Are you sure you're ready? Because it sounds like this listener really, really likes him. And if he's not ready, she could just end up getting pretty hurt, and that might be avoidable.
Jessica, guys, I have one more question for you before we got to take off, and I'm not exactly sure how to phrase it, and it's just an idea. So when somebody passes away in the relationship, do you tend to look back at the relationship more fondly? Like when there's a breakup, there are some negative feelings associated with that, making it maybe easier to move on. But when somebody passes away, you're probably only remembering the really great stuff, making it equally difficult when you engage in another relationship. Is there any truth in that?
Yes, there is. It just depends, right? So if we're talking about a circle of life type death, yes, we really reflect on and look at all of the beautiful moments that we had in life. Now, when somebody dies tragically, suddenly, kind of outside of that order, then sometimes we go back to the bad stuff and we get caught in the bad stuff because it's unprocessed or we haven't worked through it. We never got the opportunity or the chance. That's what can kind of keep us stuck in that acute grief place. Now, when we transition to more of an integrated grief, yeah, you do look back at it more fondly, but it's usually from more of like a bittersweet, not from a fairy tale.
Okay. Really great advice. That's a tough one. Jessica Hutchinson from Honest Women, the podcast. What do you guys got coming up this week on the podcast?
Funny enough, we just talked about therapy versus coaching, and Andrea and I both announced that we are launching a whole new arm of our practice where we are working with people across the country. And it just so happens that my coaching practice is with grief and marriage. So yeah, this is the perfect. I'm like, did you guys know what we were doing today? Because this is my jam right here, you guys.
You can merge them both. There's a lot of grief in marriage sometimes also. You guys got to merge.
Yeah, I would argue there's almost more.
All right. Again, it's called Honest Women. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you so much, you guys.
The Bert Show.